Welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast, where we have conversations with guests about their life, loss, grief, and of course, grief dreams, which can be dreams of the deceased. If you want to know more about the topic and your host, please visit the website griefdreams.ca. To support the podcast, please go ahead and rate it. For additional ways to support the show, please see the episode show notes. Before I move on with the show, I would like to give a territory acknowledgement. Long before Canada was formed, the Stalo people were the original land stewards, and they have lived here since time immemorial. They continue to live in the unceded Stalo territory known to settlers as the Fraser Valley and Lower Fraser Canyon of British Columbia. I recognize and honor the contribution that Indigenous peoples have made and continue to make to our community and the topic of grief dreams. Welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast. Thank you again for tuning in. So today we have Kyle Kittleson, who is an engaging on-camera host for MedCircle, educating millions on the vital topic of mental health through compelling interviews and educational content with world-class mental health professionals. He is skilled at translating complex topics into accessible, engaging conversations. Also, Kyle is a former marine mammal trainer. So I'm looking forward to talking about his life, his journey, and why he's here today.
Hello.
Hi, Kyle. Thanks for joining us. I'm really interested in your journey to get to MedCircle. I know they have a new course, Beyond Bereavement, that has started up. And part of, I think, your journey is a loss, a significant loss. And I would love to hear more about that and when it happened.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest loss in my life was the death of my mother when I was 16. Certainly, for most people, their parent is a really influential person, a really impactful person. And I had a very, very close relationship with my mother. I was a mama's boy. I was all about it. So losing my best friend and my confidant and my protector and my safety at 16 was really difficult. And, I have had dreams about her related to this loss for decades. Okay, I'm 39 now. And I've talked to a lot of therapists over my 8 years at MedCircle. A lot of therapists, okay? Psychologists, psychiatrists, all of them. And we never talk about dreams. It rarely comes up. I mean, I think once or twice I asked a question. I was like, what does this dream mean? Or what would you tell a client if they came to you with this dream? But that is it. So I'm really excited to not only share, but get your own opinion and perspective on this as someone who this is all you talk about is the dream part. So so that's it. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why I started to do the research was because so many people, like a lot of people didn't mention it, but they were having the experience to begin with. And most people, if they remember their dreams, will remember dreams of the deceased, and that can be very challenging or very comforting to someone's grief journey. And so, yeah, well, I'd love to answer any kind of questions that you have. And so first, could you talk a little bit about, you said like your mom died when you're younger. Was it sudden? Like, how did you process that loss? And did you have supports along the way?
She was diagnosed with cancer when I was 13, and then she died 3 years later after that. It was interesting because I kind of was told that the cancer was defeated and she's all good and don't worry. And not by doctors, by like my dad, my mom. They're telling me this. And of course, I'm just like, okay, sounds good. I'm 13, 14, like moving on. I got to go see my friends at the movies. Like it wasn't something that I was really thinking about that much because I was told it was taken care of. And then you start going, well, if it's taken care of, why is she sick? Why is she going to the doctor? You're getting mixed signals. And then when I confronted them about that, and they're like, it's not taken care of. I think that was the first grief of like, oh, wow. One, I guess they're not always going to tell me the truth that I hate. And two, we're in this big battle. And then shortly after that, maybe a year after that, she ended up dying. And I was on my way to study for a Spanish final, and my dad called me and said, you need to get to the hospital. And I go to the hospital and I see my mom, and she's, just like on death's door, as they say. And I spent the night in the hospital. I woke up, I go to the school, I take my finals, and I get out of my finals, and my dad calls me and he says, your mom's dead. Do you want to see her one more time before, this is over? I was like, no, I do not want to see my mother dead. I don't want have any interest in that. And I had a big support system, but I will tell you, I don't know if I felt like I had a support system. I felt, if someone asked me how I felt back then, I felt alone. I felt like, oh shit, I have to do this. I have to do life by myself now, even though I had all this support and blah, 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 blah. And then it probably took me 20 years to quote get over it, which is really just another way of me saying like I can I used to not have any pictures of my mother in my house. I used to not be able to listen to the piano because she was a professional pianist and I associated her with piano. And now I can do those things. So that's what I mean when get over it. But it took so freaking long. Oh God, Yeah.
Yeah, well, it said like we're just all trying to figure this out. And like I'm guess back then, like I said 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't, grief and bereavement literacy wasn't a big thing. And
No.
kids grief wasn't like really well supported either. And since you went to the counseling later on, how did you work with some of those emotions? How did that all kind of work in when you look back on your grief and how you dealt with it?
I just shoved all of that into a box, and then I took that box and dipped it in cement, and then I put that cement in a trunk, and then I buried that trunk 100 feet down in the ground, and that was it. I avoided it. I avoided it. Maybe a couple times a year I would talk about it or answer questions if it came up, but I was like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to see it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to look at it. So that's what I did. And it was very effective, especially early on. It's incredibly effective. It also coincided with a time in my life where I was distracted. I'm 16 and I'm in college and I'm in high school and I'm a closeted gay man and I'm leaving soon to go to another state for college. And all of these things made it easier also to avoid. But eventually, I was in my 20s, and the short story here is that I leave this party after hearing piano music, and I drive home, and I kick the windshield out of my car. Not out, but like I break it totally. I just shatter my windshield. And because I'm so angry and sad that my mom died and I'm 20, whatever. It's been 10 years and I'm angry and I'm sad 10 years later that my mom died. I'm having this like reaction as though it just happened, as though I'm reacting as you would assume someone would react, finding out moments later that their mother died. And when I had this huge physical reaction, I'm a very big fan of somatic experiencing. I'm a very big fan of, I am a big believer that trauma is stored in the body, yada, yada, yada. And so when I had this very big physical reaction, I was like, Kyle, you can't do this. Like, you can't just kick out windshields in the car because you're angry and sad. Like, not good. But as many of the doctors have taught me over the years, Dr. Christy Lamb, psychiatrist, my expert on anxiety, she would say anger is one of the best emotions you can have, period. It tells you are not okay with something and it can lead us to really reparative action. But we avoid anger. I used to avoid anger. And so I was like, I got to stop avoiding anger. So I locked it up and I avoided it for a long time. And then I had to slowly dig 100 feet down and take out the trunk and break off the cement and open the little box and go, okay, now what is this? And what is this? And what is this? And I had to do it slowly over time, over a long period of time. And I didn't rush it because what is the rush? Like, what am I trying to get to? So that's how I did it. It was just literally allowing me to think of my mother because I did it for so long.
Wow, it's so interesting to sort of see how that grief was so delayed. Like even though you put it so deep down, it found a way through. I
Yeah,
think that's
always.
yeah, and I think it's sometimes we have this illusion that we can just put it away and then it'll just be there forever and we don't have to think about it. But it comes through in these weird moments. And it's nice how you connected the dots. Some people don't. right? Where they just maybe just get in a fight or they have an angry outburst and they project it on someone and they blame that person rather than realizing, oh, like it was activated prior from either hearing a piano or something to do with the childhood. So I think that's amazing. And so how long before after you kicked out the window to like actually realizing, you know what, I should talk about this? Was there a gap there or did you say, oh, I really need help?
I don't think there was a gap. I think my boyfriend at the time was also like, "Whoa, what is this guy doing?" But so there was probably some encouragement on that side. No, there wasn't a gap, and I had been in therapy since I was 9 years old, way before my mother had died. I had been in therapy after that. It had come up in therapy, and I probably looking back was like, no, 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 we're not here for that. I'm depressed. Let's focus on that, not my dead mom. A young man in therapy, not understanding. But, it was pretty immediate, but it wasn't like, "Okay, I have I haven't gotten over this grief, so I need to go do a journal, and I need to do breathing exercises and meditate and talk to a therapist." It was literally just, "Can you think about your mom? Can you just think about it? Can you just sit here and think about it and not break a windshield? Let's try that." Like low hanging fruit. And if I had done this at 16, and the only way I would have known to do this at 16 if somebody held my hand and said, "We're gonna do this." And I said and I said, "Okay," I would have to agree to it. But otherwise, how would you know, at any point in your life, let alone when you're 16? But if I had done that when I was 16, it would have given me a 10-year head start, Like, whether you want to, I'll say, healthfully process your grief or not, you're going to process your grief, and you can either process it poorly, good, bad, great, better than you thought, worse than you thought. All options are up to you, but it's going to get processed, whether you are in the game or out of the game. It's going to get processed. And I wish I would have processed mine like I did when I was 26, starting at 16. You know, I wish I did that, but I didn't. I was like, my mom died. Let me just forget that ever happened.
Yeah, I think most people are in that same boat where it's too overwhelming. What do you do?
Yeah.
And if anything, I think we train ourselves to be able to avoid, and we're good at it. Like, stuff
Oh,
like
good.
that.
And like I
So
said, it's very effective. And a lot of people will go, "Oh, yeah, well, my spouse died or my child died, and it would be great to go and grieve and mourn and do the work and go to therapy and take time and blah, blah, blah. But I got a mortgage or I got other kids or I got whatever I got going on. I have to avoid to live. I have to avoid so I can go to work. I have to do all these things so I can get through the day." I'm like, "You're right. You're right." And like I said earlier, and you're gonna process that grief whether you're in the game or not. So if you've got 2 other kids you gotta take care of and the bills are coming and all that, I get all of that, and your grief is being processed, whether you're in the game or you're not. So the more we can get in the game, when I know it's hard and we're busy and it sucks, right? It's not like a fun game. But the more we can get in the game, the better, the better. And that's why, and I'm not pitching this bereavement course that MedCircle has. I don't like pitching mental health resources. We have a ton of free resources. Go to the YouTube channel, go to our website, get all the free stuff you can. But for people who, and I'm one of these people, that's why the course was made that way. For people who literally just want to be told, here's step 1, go. And now here's step 2, go. And now here's step 3, and there's going to be 6. Okay. So here's step 4, 5, and 6. And then here you go. And it doesn't mean at step 6, you wake up smiling and dancing and blah, blah, blah. It just means you've gone through the actual work that I'm sure everybody talks about doing. Everybody talks about doing the work. You got to do the work. Okay. Well, what are you talking about? The work. And so this is like a framework, a step-by-step process. It is work, but it is, you at least know, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And sometimes that's so much easier when you're in the middle of trauma or bereavement or grief for someone to just say, hey, do this first. Just do this one thing first.
And what are some of those things? Like, what some of those steps, those 6 steps? Is anger part of it? Because I know you mentioned anger, and I'm always really curious because I'm probably in the same boat as many other people where anger can be scary. And so you would kind of avoid that emotion. But does it talk about processing anger in a healthy way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the framework of the course really looks at an introspection of the events that happened and how your body and your mind and your emotions, your thoughts, and your behaviors reacted to that event. Then we start looking at what tools will work for you and whatever bereavement you're going through. Maybe, we use this general term like grief, and grief is universal and we all get it, but come on, like a 16-year-old who loses his mom versus somebody who lost their spouse after 50 years versus somebody whose cousin was murdered at gunpoint. These are all going to have different types of impacts and going to affect everybody differently. It's why, two kids can both lose their parent and one kid turns to drugs and the other one turns to football. It's just, it's all going to be so unique to us. So the course is really designed to say, hey, let's look at this together. Now let's look how you responded to all this together. Now let's look at the parts of your life that you would like to address. And you don't need to do them all. You don't need to do them. You don't need to do any of them. But if you want to look at some of them, here they are. Here are the science-backed toolkits or, exercises and strategies for that, both for in the moment. So when you had this major trauma and you're driving past that four-way stop where the trauma accident occurred and you don't know how to physically go through that. We have all of those strategies and exercises for you, but also the preventative trauma or the preventative work of going, I know this trauma is being carried and stored within me. I know that it's seeping out into how I parent, how I love, how I work, and I want to get in touch with it and address it so that I feel in control of it. That's why anger is such a great thing to talk about, because you mentioned anger is scary. Anger is also very uncomfortable. Anger is something that we don't want to feel. We hate that feeling, and it's such a natural part of grief. But most of us, this is why, like, if you just want to go on your own tangent, acceptance and commitment theory, I think commitment therapy is so beautiful. ACT is such a beautiful therapy for anyone, for almost any reason, because it teaches us how to look at our thoughts. And most of us are angry, and we're angry. We might wake up angry, and then we, without thinking, quash that anger. And that might be by getting caffeinated. That might be by watching something violent. That might be singing in the shower. Whatever you want to do to quash that anger, but we didn't even realize we were angry. We just woke up with this feeling, and then we got rid of it. And if I leave you a voicemail, Josh, on your freaking phone and say, hey, it's me, anger, I need to talk to you, and you delete that voicemail, well, I'm going to call back and I'm going to be even more loud. And I'm going to keep calling back until you say, I'm angry. I need you to address this. You can't just push me away, Josh. You got to come address this. So that's one emotion, anger. That's one, right? And so then we go through all of these, the regret and the grief and the, one big one is guilt. Oh my gosh, the guilt we have of the guilt I had of going, yeah, but I still have one parent and at least I got my mom for 16 years and all of those things we start telling each other. We go through all of it. And one person might not have a problem with the guilt and another person might, but there's strategies for everybody. And what was interesting is my dog died like a week after I wrapped filming this course on grief. And so when my dog died, I was like, I'm ready to go, baby. I know exactly how to grieve this. I was doing all the things that I learned from 3 days of filming all day, and I grieved good, like I was a good griever. It was like effective grieving.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about the passing of your dog.
Thank you.
And it's difficult, and it brings up like other losses as we move forward. But it's nice how you feel confident to be able to sit with those emotions now rather than avoid them. And it's really interesting to see the parallels in how we have changed so much, because I think the road can be kind of lonely sometimes, and so these markers really allow us to sort of see how far we've actually come as we sort of move forward. And that kind of, I think, is voiced as you talk to other grievers on how the journey changes as we sort of allow these emotions in. And I think it was kind of interesting how you said like the anger will like call you and get louder, And that actually a good tie into dreams, where many dreams we'll talk about is related to the grief that we're going through, either in a very negative sense, or it's these dreams sometimes of the deceased trying to reassure us or help us through those emotions, which I think is
Mm.
very interesting. And so I'm curious, since you were avoiding the loss for the beginning, did you have more negative dreams or dreams that had like that kind of emotion like into it, like the guilt and stuff, or were they a little different?
Well, I've had lots of different dreams, but there's 2 that come up that reoccur, and, I didn't have the dreams right after my mom died. It's almost like it took a couple years for them to come in, which looking back or now that I'm saying this out loud, I guess makes, sense to me because I'm like, "No, I'm not talking about this, da, da, da," and, like, it's very effective, and then eventually your body's like, "Well, here's some dreams because 'cause you're not thinking about this," you know? That's my ana my layperson analysis. But so the first dream that I had was my mom would come back alive, and it was for a TV show. It was it was like a prank where I find out that my mom never was sick, she never died. We had to do it for this TV show. And you know how in like, as I'm saying this, obviously it sounds ridiculous, but in a dream, these ridiculous things don't seem ridiculous. It's like, of course, we had to do it for the TV show. Obviously, that makes sense. I didn't think we were doing a TV show, you know? It makes so much sense in my dream. And so she would come back from the TV show, and I was thrilled. I was like, "This." I wasn't mad that we lied about the TV show, that it was kept from me, that we had to go through. I was only like, "I'm so glad that this was fake, that this was not real," you know?
That's so interesting. Actually, you see that theme actually with other people too.
Mm,
And it's like in different ways where I always think that there's meaning towards, those things. And some of the dreams are, as you said, like when you are introduced to the deceased, they give some type of reason or some understanding on why they are there, like to almost make it make sense in a
mm,
way, to allow it to process. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, they faked their death or they've been in hiding for the CIA, or sometimes with partners, they said they were cheating on someone else and now they're back. Like, so it's very interesting, like how there's that theme across different losses. And then in some other ones, it continues on, and then there's like sometimes a message or something that allows the person to say something or to give something to the dreamer. Either it's a hug or it's comfort that they still love them or something like that. But there's got to be some kind of function to that in the sense of seeing them again and not running,
mm,
right? Like if it was just, oh, you're dead, it might just be like too overwhelming. So the idea that they're still alive can at least bring that moment together. The issue is, I think, when you wake up, right? And then, then
Isn't
you're
that always the issue, waking up? Great.
but maybe that's also the point. Like maybe it's a part of it is like people who are maybe have a tendency to avoid these dreams help them get their foot in, and then they wake up and they could feel the grief because now they realize once again it's not real, and
Mm,
that their mom is not, or the person's dead is not there, and what comes up. Because I think that would propel a significant emotional outburst the
hmm.
moment you wake up. I don't know if you can reflect on that.
Yeah, I don't remember having that feeling, but again, this dream corresponded with all of my avoidance. So if I did wake up and have that feeling, I was not mindful of it. I was like, squash, next feeling, keep it going.
Just doubling down on the
Oh, of
technique,
doubling
yeah.
down, because you have to think too, like, if we look at it like a drug, it worked. For a while, it worked. It was effective in what I was trying to accomplish, which is not feel. And, why wouldn't I try that again? Your body goes, "This worked, try it again." Well, it's not working right now. Who cares? It used to work. Try it again, try it again. And you don't I wanna be very clear, I didn't know I was doing any of this. This is all when you look back, you go, "Oh, that's what I was doing." I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, "Oh, dream about my mom, whatever." Wouldn't even like just next topic, like, just keep it going. That is actually a really good point. It's just like we're constantly getting all of the information we need. We're just not paying attention to it. It's just like it's just if if money flowed to you the way this universal information flows to you, people would pay attention. They'd be like, what is this? Okay. But we have all this other good stuff, valuable stuff, more valuable than money flowing to us. And we don't. We don't even know it's flowing. We don't even know we're getting it, you know? But that was my first dream. We were on a TV show.
It's interesting. I think you're right. I think dreams and other life moments provide us information that we're like a best friend trying to tell us to like, these are the things that you're working through that you don't really understand.
Mhm.
And I think the more you can gain that emotional awareness and emotional intelligence, you start seeing the signs everywhere. And it's a lot easier to live because now you're not carrying all these emotions to bed or to the next day. You're processing them right in the beginning and being more
Mhm.
curious about them and how they kind of relate and what they're activating in us at times. So that's very interesting. I really appreciate you sharing that dream. What was that second dream?
The second one's a lot sadder, and it came much later. And my guess is I will have this dream again, maybe tonight because I've been talking about it. But this dream, my mother is alive, but she left our family and I guess faked her own death. Like it is addressed in the dream, but it's not like it's like a footnote in the dream. It's not a big plot point. But basically, it's like, yeah, your mom died, but she didn't really die. What really happened is she found another family. And so this whole time she's been living with this other family. And I'm like, so she's alive? And they're like, oh, yeah. I was like, well, I know she's going to want to talk to me, like if she's alive. And so I go try to reach out to her. And in this dream, I do, and my dad does, and she wants nothing to do with us. She like won't respond. And then if we do run into her somewhere, she's like, like, nope, this is not my family. I have a different family. And it's so sad because then you're getting like the double whammy of, oh my God, your mom didn't die. And you're like, yes. And then she's like, well, she's alive, but she doesn't even want to see you anymore. You're like, what? It just sucks. I don't know what that's about, okay? And to be honest, I haven't thought about it much. If I think about everything, I'll probably just end up in my room with, darts everywhere and red wire connecting newspaper articles and try to figure it all out. So I don't know what do you think that means?
Yeah, everyone's a little different, right? And only you really, I think, know based on the emotions you're carrying. But you definitely like can look at the emotions and see this abandonment aspect of wanting to reach out and they're not there. And
Mhm.
so there's different things that could be going on in the sense of you could have moments in your life that you want your mom to be a part of, like big moments that they're not around anymore, or moments you'd like to tell her something. Then that dream kind of comes in as that, aspect of that to reflect it in a way. And I think it's interesting she has a new family because you see that with spouses, it's like they're with a different partner. Like it's kind of interesting how in different people with different types of losses, there's that same type of theme of the person's alive again, but just not with them. And they can't like get to them. There's like this betrayal or there's this lack of connection there. It's interesting and curious to think because of the symbolism of that. And it doesn't have to be so negative, like, oh, I feel like, betrayed that she died. It could just be something like, oh, I wish she was here to be able to tell her whatever is going on.
Yeah.
And be curious of what that may be or what is going on in your life that you are excited about or that you are hopeful about that she's just not around to sort of celebrate. It could be just celebrating your wins, right? At the same time, that's part of what moms do and parents do is
Yeah.
celebrate us. And but it could be also we're feeling that we need love, right? Like I know I still do. And I love
Yeah.
when my mom tells me that or provides comfort for me. So it's really understanding, I think, where you're at and like what are you actually needing from your mom? Because you said your mom was everything,
Everything, I know.
right? So it's like these
I
moments.
think now that I'm hearing you and talking out loud, I think that specific dream of her not wanting to have anything to do with us because she has this other family could also be soothing a part of me that has daydreamed about what if she never died? Okay, let's just play that game. What if she never died? Well, who knows what would happen? Maybe my mom and dad would have gotten a divorce. Maybe she would have ended up with another family or had another husband. And I would have hated that. I would have hated that. And I think, and this is probably going to rub some people the wrong way, but I think there is a version of where she doesn't die that is worse than her actually dying, because bad things can happen when you're alive. And it would be really hard for me to watch bad things happen to my mother. I already did watch something terrible happen to her. But if she was in an abusive relationship, if she was financially unable to take care of herself, if she developed a substance use problem, if she got involved with people who were bad, I don't know. And I'm like, I don't think anything that would happen, but we just don't know. You just don't know. And so if I have this dream where I'm like, well, your mom's alive, but this other thing didn't happen, it's kind of like, look, no matter what, your life was going to be without her. Like in the fake dream world, she doesn't, she ended up with a new family. In the real world, she died. So there's just like this. It's like we're not even going to tease you with another version of her where she's around. We're just going to be like, there's no version where she's around, And for whatever reason, that has some. It's not. It's because maybe I'm not missing out. Then you can't miss out if every version ends up with her out of the picture. So there's nothing to be missing out.
That's so interesting.
Maybe.
Well, I think just like we don't know, but like at the end of the day, but like the idea of that, I can understand it. If you downplay the rest of her life, it wouldn't hurt so much. Even though that may not even be true, it may should be, just as loving and helpful.
Yeah.
Right. But like to us to reduce the pain, because how strong the pain is that we're trying to make up scenarios to reduce it. I do it all the time in waking life and stuff like that too. And so it's interesting to put that on a loss and like, oh, if this continued, it would have been said like something negative that I wouldn't have wanted anyways. And so it kind of reduces that. Wow.
Yeah, because we think like our kid died, or somebody's child died. And then depending on so many factors, but a lot of those parents would then for the rest of their lives be thinking, oh, today he would have been 26. Today he probably would have been, maybe he would have gotten married. Maybe he would have had some kids by now. Maybe he would have done this. And we think about all the great stuff, but what if that's not true? What if it was terrible? It's just, that is the reality. The reality is that bad things can happen even, to those who are good. And I've even said before, I'm way closer to my mother, was way closer to my mother than I am my father. And I'm glad, if this is so sick to say, but I'm glad that my dad lived and my mom died, even though I'm way closer to my mother than I am my father, because I looked at my mother as somebody who had some helplessness with her, who needed safety, who should be protected. To me, she was almost fragile, that she needed to be supported and protected. And I look at my dad as not fragile, does not need protection. He is the protector. He's going to be fine. He has resilience and grit in a way that my mother does not. This is the way I was looking at him, when I was a teenager. And I would feel so much more alone and helpless if my dad had died and then it was me and my mother. Because now I'd be like, God, I got to take care of my mother. My dad's not here to help out. I have to do everything. It would just be overwhelming. But when my mom died, I'm like, oh, I can mourn that, but I don't feel I have responsibility to continue this family forward. My dad is carrying that responsibility. And so I think that is, so it's, I'm just saying that to say, if you're like, God, at least this person died and not this person, and it worked out, even though I love this person so much. I don't think that's a bad thought to have. It's a real thought. It's a true thought to have.
Yeah, but it's bred in avoidance, right? Like the thoughts they're not real because like we don't know what would have happened. And so they're coming out and they're being held because they work with the model of how we cope. And so that's just avoidance in a different outfit in a way, right? Where now you're not trapping it, right? Now you're like, actually, oh, this is just like soothing the pain.
Yeah. I'm so lucky it went this way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Instead of like the horrifying thing of actually having to sit with the gravity of what happened. It's interesting. The human mind is, I think, just the most fascinating thing to be able to help us cope in the most extraordinary ways without us even really knowing like what models we're using. It's fascinating. And so I'm glad that you're sharing this stuff. I think it's like so interesting. because I'm just looking at it from like different angles, and it's like it's all good. Like, and like we all have our own path that we take. But it's interesting how we cope kind of moves forward and gets different as we sort of move forward with that. But our love for that first way of coping, whether if it is like medication or avoidance or whatever, like it stays with us. We can't just like not use it. It's like it'll
Mhm.
just like morph into something a little different, but maybe a little more helpful. But it's still there. And I always find that interesting with all of our neuroses that they're still there, but it's like how I think just the voices change and how loud they get to use them as we sort of move forward. And I think that's what's great about your therapy. And I'm guessing the course too, on like being able to provide other techniques that you never thought about in challenging some of the old ways that we have been taught to cope and taught to work through stress and pain. Because I think that's the game, right? If it's not a death loss, it's be and some other loss, that it's going to be some other pain that comes to us. It's like, how do we deal with those challenges and that pain to sort of live the best life we can,
Yeah.
and to grow, through that. And I'm really hopeful for your course. And I think this is an amazing conversation. First of all, I think it's so interesting. And so I want to pivot back then. Does dreams come up at all in the course?
God, I don't think so.
Okay, yeah. Which I would
Yeah.
expect, and I think that's kind of the reason for the
What's
podcast.
cool though is the course is in conjunction with a community. So that community, my guess is there are people in there talking about their dreams because they talk about everything. That has been as beneficial as the actual course, I think, for MedCircle members, is to go, okay, I'm doing the course and I'm on step 3, but then be able to see, okay, what did you do for step 3? And like, where are you at? Or why are you on step 1? And then you could throw out there, be like, guys, every night I wake up at 3 in the morning and it's a nightmare I'm having. Like help, or what do you think? Or has anyone else had this? And invariably someone's going to say, yeah, me too. We're not alone in any of these things, but that community portion is huge. When I also filmed a course on trauma, and you can put trauma and grief in the same freaking bucket, okay? And I worked with Dr. Frank Anderson on the trauma course, who is my last word on trauma. And he really, I mean, he's just so freaking good. He's just actually so freaking good. But basically, he goes, if you do not have love and connection, your trauma is not going to get healed. Okay. He never said those words exactly. I'm just telling you what I think after talking to him. Love and connection. And the connection doesn't have to be cuddling up on a couch and watching Hallmark movies, although it can be. It can be connection through an online community. It can be connection through people in a survivors group or, whatever. You just got to have something. You got to go do something. And a lot of people, and I'm like the king of this clan, I don't want to be around people. Don't touch me. Don't ask me how I'm doing. I don't want your hug. Like, I need to just grieve in my peace. But I also need community, even though I don't feel like it, even though I don't want it. It's like, I don't love broccoli or the Stairmaster, but you got to do those things. They're good for you. And so, like, community is the antidote, one of the antidotes for trauma. And I think it's one of the antidotes for grief. And so you've got to find it. You've got to find it.
So hopefully these courses can allow people to also just provide comfort to understand like the best ways to also support others as we sort of move
Ugh,
forward. Like
absolutely.
and I think we all want to support and do better. It's just like getting the tools. And I think getting some training about, grief literacy is so important in our culture.
Yeah. Yeah, my like too long don't read on how to support someone with grief is don't ask anything and support as hard as you can. If you say, "Can I come over and make you dinner?" They're going to say no. Okay? But if you say, "Hey, I'm coming over around 7 with dinner," you can still say no. That person can still say no, but don't give them the option. Just show up. Just go be supportive. You know what I hate when people say? I hate when people say this. And normally people say this when the traumatic event is like ongoing, like let's say someone was in a car accident, they get rushed to the hospital. Then people go, "All right, so you're at the hospital? Yeah. So and so's in the emergency room? Yeah, okay. All right. Well, keep me posted." I go, "What do you mean keep you posted? I gotta now call you're supposed to be supporting me through this, and now I gotta call you and keep you posted? No. How about if you need something, and you want to stay posted, then you just reach out to me. Like, I'm not, don't give me things to do during my grief, during my like traumatic event. I just hate that stuff. I hate that. I went through it with my dad. My dad was in the hospital and all his friends would call me, "Hey, keep me posted. Keep me posted." I go, No. If you need an update, call me. But I'm not going to just, oh, gotta call Rick and make sure no, not doing that. I've got other things going on here.
Yeah, it's good words of advice to say, like, have intention to support.
One of the best
Yeah.
words ever, intention. Yeah.
And so, is there anything else you want to say on the course, or on your grief, before we wrap up to the last question?
I think people will probably have heard this, but some of those points, when you keep hearing them a lot, if you're listening to this podcast or seeking out information on this topic, I'll say when you start hearing the same thing over and over again, dear listener, that's probably the one that you need to be like, okay, that actually means something. Because I roll my eyes when a doctor comes on for an interview and they talk about mindfulness, okay? But I jokingly roll my eyes because mindfulness is so important, and there's a reason they bring it up every time because it's so important. So what I will say is that in our process through grief, there are many circumstances where your old life is no longer. It is gone. That is gone. And the goal here is not to rebuild so that we have the old life or that we have a better life even, because that may not even be possible. You talk to a parent who's had the most unimaginable loss, that might not be possible, and understandably so. But what we can do is have a life. We can have a life, and there is improvements, and there are glimmers of hope, and there is light. And I'm not minimizing the trauma. I'm just saying that the goal isn't necessarily we're going to be perfect and happy. The goal is, though, that we can have a life, and you deserve to have a life. Okay.
Okay. So the last question is, if you could have a dream tonight of someone who has died, maybe your mom, what would that dream look like to you?
Well, I don't know if I really want it to be my mom. I don't know. I think that's just because I'm not there yet. It would be overwhelming for me to have a dream of my mother where she walks down a staircase and looks fantastic and tells me how great I am and how much she misses me. And then we hug and embrace and blah, blah, blah. I get that. I've done inner child work. Okay. I get it. I don't know if I want that dream. I think what I would rather have, like just today for me, for to answer this question, is I'd like my dog to come back in a dream. I think that type of grief for me in a dream would be more fun, valuable. Like I'm smiling now thinking about it. It was interesting when my dog died that night. Okay. I had a dream, and the dream was that the doorbell was ringing, and I walked to the front door, and it's my dog, Callie. And I was like, "What are you doing here? I thought you died." And she's like, "I did die. I was just like coming to say hello." I was like, "Oh my God, that's so great." And so I had that dream and I didn't really think much of it. And then the next day I was talking to somebody and she goes, "Now, have you had a dream yet where Callie comes to you?" And I go, "What? I had it last night." She goes, of course, is what she thinks. She's like, "Yeah, the pets always come say goodbye one more time in a dream, after they die, just to let you know they're okay." I'm like, "Okay." Whether you believe it or not is kind of irrelevant, but it did make me happy. So if I could have a dream about someone or some animal that's died, I used to be an animal trainer, so I have a lot of dead animal dreams. I think I'd have my dog.
That's beautiful. And it's so amazing that, so we're so focused on your mom's dreams, but the dream of your dog is just as relevant and more pronounced as you said. Like, it brings a smile to your face. And for her to say hi, right? Just came by.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she didn't say hi, but, like, in the dream, she's saying hi, you know what I mean? Like, no talking dogs, but she was in the dream, if that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had a couple dreams because I've done some pet loss, like dream research, and I've had some people actually say the dog talked to them
Okay,
in the dream because it's a
yeah,
dream, right? So like
right,
anything's possible. So
I
like they
know,
talk to them.
and I never dreamed about my dog. Like, if I did, I don't remember it. So it was very comforting to have this official close, so to speak, of our relationship. I mean, 10 hours after she died, I had that dream.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be your only one, but yeah, I think
Yeah, maybe tonight I'll have more.
Another one, yeah, where like you see a lot of themes with pet loss where they're like doing routine activities, either like lying on your lap or watching TV or going for a ride in the car, things like that. But yeah, so I'll look forward to hearing more of those dreams because I think like now that I think we've talked a little bit and you're maybe paying attention to dreams a little bit more,
Yeah.
they'll be more like curious and you'll be able to sort of feel it out a little differently.
Yeah, thank you for that. Can I ask you a question before we go? Do you have time?
Yeah.
Have you ever had anyone tell you a dream that was so, I'll use the word weird, that I mean, you really like could not stop thinking about it? I know dreams are naturally weird, but is there one that you're just like, this one unbelievable?
Yeah, well, I guess there's a lot. There's
I
depending on
bet.
where I am. Sometimes it's like wisdom that you're like, "Oh, that is like the most amazing line to like move forward in life." But for me, it's some of the dreams that I have no idea how it's possible. You know, because some dreams you can understand it, like it's the mind or whatever, right? Like there's some understanding, but the ones where it's like, I don't know, someone dreams of the deceased before the deceased says goodbye. It looks like any other kind of dream of when someone dies, but this time the person doesn't actually know they're dead. So only when they wake up do they actually get a phone call saying that person died. But they're having a dream of the deceased that looks just like the dream people have when they know someone has died. And so
Wow.
to me, that's completely weird because I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. Like maybe we know we're connected beyond time and space, like, but I don't know. Um, or
Wow.
or sometimes there's other dreams where an individual that maybe is an acquaintance to a person, they'll have a dream, but then the deceased will tell them a message for someone else. And then if that person gets enough courage to tell that person says, "Oh, I've been waiting for a dream and I haven't had one yet." And it's like, oh, interesting. So when we talk about connection, that builds connection with those people, and then also gives someone kind of like the dream that they've always wanted, which is basically a lot of times is just saying that they're okay or that they love them and something like that. How is
Huh.
that possible? I don't know, but I praise the courage it takes to be able to share those types of dreams
Mhm.
because they're thinking I'm going to look insane to this person I don't really know, and say I had a dream about, let's say, your son, and it told me to tell you this. You know,
Mm.
like, it's just, like, kinda really wild stuff like that. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff is just what I find most beautiful about a lot of these dreams is just the love it can, produce with us in a time of grief. I
Mm.
think there's something very beautiful and powerful about love. As you sort of said, like, with trauma, like, love and connection are the main things, and I think in a dream, we can get a deeper sense of love than we can get in waking life because all those anxieties, those doubts, the past traumas don't really exist. And that's what happened with me, where like I got to sort of have this dream with my father after he died, where there's just this love in the dream. And I got to tell him I loved him. And it was the most profound experience I think ever had. And I woke up completely different. And so the power of love, I think, is just the main thing of it all, like what the dreams are. But I think like in those moments, however we interpret it, I don't think it matters that much in that moment. I think it's about the love in that dream that actually helps us from within. And then how we interpret it can either help or challenge or cause us distress as we move forward. But I think it's still doing something within us.
That sounds healing to have that. And it's almost like when you're explaining that, it's almost like a fast track to healing a little bit. Because if you can go have this epiphany in a dream and get bombarded with all this love from your deceased father and then wake up and feel different, I mean, how often do people really walk out of the therapy room feeling that different? Rarely, but if you can do it in a dream like that, I mean, the body wants to take care of itself, and sometimes it gets it really right. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And my curiosity too is what about all the dreams that we're not remembering?
I
You know,
know. I
you know,
know.
are they
And
still
why
healing?
and then
Right?
how often do you talk about lucid dreaming on here?
Not that often.
Because that's what I wanna do. I wanna just, like, buckle in for the time of my life every night, you know?
Well, if you really love it, I know you can train yourself to do it. So
Yeah, that's what they say, but then I get too tired, I'm like, "I just wanna go to sleep." Let's just forget about this.
That's awesome. Well, this has been a really great conversation, and yeah, hopefully, so if you have any more questions or if your community has any questions, feel free to reach out.
Awesome.
Just because there's a lot of bad advice that people give because it's
Of
not coming
course.
from an academic source. But at the end of the day, I'm happy that you're a part of this and you're also transforming your own grief to help others, and you found a way through, and provides me hope that like so many other people can too with the right tools and just conversations
Yeah,
that we
thanks,
have.
Josh. Thank you. Thanks for doing this, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate your listeners who rally around this.
Okay, so where can people find you, the course, or and your socials?
Yeah, I hate social media, but the best thing to do is email me, kyle@medcircle.com. You can go to medcircle.com for free resources. You can go to the MedCircle YouTube channel for free resources. If you have a child under the age of 6, I also have a kids YouTube channel called Baba Blast. So you can also email me at kyle@babablast.com. And that's what I do. That's where you can find me, on the email.
Okay, thank you so much for being here.